What is pain? What is misery?
If you examine the title of this session, it is, are there questions truly worth asking? What I find is that there perhaps is a compulsion for people to ask questions just to ask questions. If you ask what is pain, what is misery, that I'm not sure the question goes anywhere. It's humans have become so prescriptive that they seem to ask, well, what is an arm? What is a leg? Everyone's in search of a definition when they know perfectly well what it is. One must really take this to heart. Is there truly a question that is worth asking?
What am I to do with this energy is my question.
If I tell you to go do 12 jumping jacks, will you do it?
I might.
Okay, and then after you do, and then after you do the 12 jumping jacks, where will you be? Do you realize that nobody in this room is a real human? Everyone is simply a prescription chaser. I look in the people who have their hands raised, and it's the same people over and over again. And they ask the same empty questions, which essentially go nowhere. And so the take-home message from there isn't to ask a good question. It really is to examine oneself and say, what am I really asking? What am I really doing in my life? What is it that's actually worth anything? Why do I ask these empty questions, ask how to do this and how to do that, and even if I get an answer as to how to do it, once I do the doing, does it get me anywhere? I don't think anyone's looking at themselves. And if you tell someone to look at themselves, they'll do it in a self-examination way. See, a human is never far from prescription. He's always going down one prescription or another, one self-help route or another. He's like sitting on the precipice, and there's 16,000 different prescription routes to go down. And whatever you say to him, he will turn that into a prescription route. No one is real. If you look at a politician isn't a real human. A politician should be shaken and smacked to see if an ouch can come out of him, because the ouch is real. It's spontaneous. Other than that, he has his perfectly combed hair and he has his well-formed speeches. But he isn't a real human. He's just a robot. And humans are all the same way. Humans are all politicians. No one is real. No one is examining anything. No one is doing anything that is beyond the bounds of self-help, self-improvement, and spirituality. And if I say to someone that one may wish to examine themselves, they will do so under the guise of self-examination. Watch my thoughts, because it's good for me, and I was told to do it, and it's self-help, and I'll get better. There's no real humans. If I take a blood sample from all of you, it'll be water. It won't be blood. There's nothing in your veins. No one is real. Everyone is simply a chaser. Everyone asks empty questions just to get on stage so they can ask a question. And it's curious and intellectual and spiritual. And they'll say yes and then get off stage and go back to their miserable little lives. No one is real. Now, becoming real isn't a compulsion. But if becoming real means something to somebody, then they actually might get a real glimpse of life. Otherwise, they're just an automaton, speaking empty words. How do you define pain? How do you define this? How do you define that? What's the best way to do this? What should I do here? Dose of pleasure, dose of pleasure, dose of pleasure. Just empty, empty, empty chases with cardboard cutout humans. And the irony is that the humans who are cardboard cutouts were not born as cardboard cutouts. They were born as real humans. Nature doesn't create cardboard cutouts. It's about a human being, if he wishes to do so, drawing blood and recognizing, does he have blood in his veins or is it water?
Hey, Kapil, I have a question that hasn't left me for, I think about this every day and just every waking moment. And it's a genuine question. And I want to preface that because in the past I've asked questions and you've sounded a little bit mad at me.
Well, you're going to ask an empty question. You always do. Your questions don't go anywhere. If you spend time reading my discourses and they've done something for you, so be it. But the questions that you ask are the same questions over and over again. They don't really go anywhere, and this one's not going to go anywhere either. You just waste your time. You ask questions like, how do you conquer the mind? How do you do that? How do you do this? And you may not say, how do you, but they're all empty.
I don't have a how-to question.
No, but it is a how-to question. And what I just said is not going to resonate with you. That's why you responded so quickly. A person who provides a quick response doesn't hear anything. You didn't hear that. You're just too eager to ask your meaningless question. There's no point in going on.
I want to talk to you about your own philosophy. So I liken your philosophy to nihilism, where you don't believe in.
Number one, okay, stop. Do you understand what you're doing here? You have these categories in your mind, or a bunch of isms, and then you take what I say and you put them under those boxes, under those categories. So this is ism this, and this is nihilism this, and this is Buddhism this, and this is ism, and you have your neat little world of your intellectual categorizations. You haven't heard a word I said. I have no philosophy. I have no beliefs. I have no opinions. There's no isms here. But that is the only way, that is the only lens through which you can talk. That is the only lens in which you've been given to see the world. And as a result, you see nothing at all. I have no ism and I have no philosophy. You go ahead and ask your question. Let's see where it goes. Let's see, is it
Right.
really a true question? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I also believe in rejecting most dogma, like you, but
I don't
do
believe in it. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in rejecting anything. If something actually works, there's no reason to reject it. There's no belief.
That's exactly what my question was. Like, there are things in the world that work, like capitalism, private property laws, and if we rejected everything as dogma, I feel there are some important ideas to hold on as a society, and there are trade-offs where one person wants to be peaceful, but then some people have to take up the cowl for the rest of the society to make it a safe society. Like,
The problem is I cannot talk to you because you're too much of a societal person. You believe too much society. You mentioned the word society 4 times in the last 10 seconds. There's no community. There's no society. There's no one person taking up the slack. There is no society. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to have any kind of useful conversation with you.
Where or when the competition or comparison ends, if that is something makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so yesterday when I had a chat with you, I told that I am envious of every single person out there, and you told me that it's more of I have been grown in a society where it's more about competition and comparisons. So in that sense, I want to know like where or when is the end to that?
So what if I told you it'll end next Thursday at 2 p.m.? Do you see the stupidity of your question?
Yeah.
You're going to wait around for the next Thursday at 2 p.m.?
No.
So if one is able to see their own stupidity, then they actually have a chance at wisdom.
Just one question. If we were to give in to all our vices, would that lead to enlightenment?
No. Do you understand why it would not?
I'm living in the moment.
Oh, don't start that, please. Don't start.
Sorry.
that.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry
Okay,
to offend you.
Okay, look, it's not offending me, it's offending yourself. Listen.
Yeah.
If you give in to everything, then you're making a contract. It's an ulterior motive. You're making a deal. It's okay. If I give in to all these things, then I'll get enlightenment. And that is the same exact
what
thing
if I'm
that
not afraid of death?
What does that have to do with anything? You said if I give in to all my vices, will that lead me to enlightenment? And so if the people have been doing these contracts for their whole life, and the spiritualists and the world tells you to make these contracts, that if you do this, then you'll get enlightenment. If you practice in this way, you'll get enlightenment or realization or success or nirvana or moksha or whatever your word or flavor of the week.
But isn't meditation now? Isn't meditation moment?
Okay, have you found the moment?
Yes, with substances, yes. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so if you found the moment with substances, that makes you a drug addict. That doesn't make you finding the moment. The drug found the moment. You didn't find anything.
I guess I don't have a question, but if I'm ready to stop being a slave, is there any way you could help me?
No, I can't help you. Well, I have no idea what you even mean by help. What does help mean? Now, if someone is fallen in a ditch, and the ditch goes up to their neck, and the side of the ditch is very slippery, wet sand and muddy, and there's someone standing on top of the ground level, that person can help. He can reach his arm down, and he can help pull the other individual up. But that doesn't work metaphorically. That's a literal form of help, and that does work because it is mechanical. It does work. That is help. So you asked a question, which is, I'm ready to stop being a slave. Can you help me? Help you with what? If you're ready to stop being a slave, then that means that you're ready to stop being a slave. Your biggest issue is going to be how much of that is simply a comment and how much of it is actually real. Once again, do you have blood in your veins or water? Not that you should. There's no compulsion to have blood in your veins. You don't get a prize if you do. I don't care if you have blood in your veins. But at the end of the day, your experience of life will be determined by if you are real or not. Because if you're not real, if you're not a real human, then you can't have a true vision of life. You can't see life and you can't feel life. A piece of cardboard can't feel life. It's not a good or a bad thing.
The earlier person asked, you said you're not a real person. What do you mean? What is it to be a real person?
Well, I think it's important to first get away from definitions. Because if I state a definition, then you're going to try to live up to it, and that's just more falseness. Just understand what real and not real means, and that it isn't a good thing to be real, and it isn't a bad thing to not be real. But basically, it's what I said earlier, is that a human being simply chases prescriptions. And he turns everything into concepts and ideas. So I should do this, or I should do that, or I should feel this way, or this is better for me, and this is correct, and that's bad, and this will make me a good person, and that's a bad person, this is healthy for me, this is proper. All of these things. Everyone's always going down one of these avenues. It's all they know. It's all that they've been conditioned to do. That isn't real. Because it wasn't created by you. It's all conceptual. Everyone lives a conceptual life, beholden like a slave to good and bad. Everyone tries to be a good person, and they're beholden to the slavery of being good. Therefore, they live under a guillotine their whole life. So if someone is actually real, they will examine what is real about their life and what it is not. And if they examine mechanically, according to mindfulness and spirituality, then they're going back to the silliness that got them there in the first place. So is there anything in one's life that's real? And don't answer that question because I don't want to hear it. That's a question between you and you.
What could be a way so that person can master himself or herself and know about what are my inclinations or what are my conditioning so that you can be free of them?
I think it is important to understand that there is nothing in your life that is not conditioning. Everything that you think that you know is false. Begin there, if you wish.
Are you able to transfer enlightenment if it's something that you've personally experienced or received?
It doesn't really matter. What if I was able to do it? Are you asking me to do it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not interested in doing that. Why would I even do that? Why would anybody do that?
To help
What would be
somebody down a path.
Well, if someone gives someone enlightenment, then there is no path anymore.
A taste of it. Obviously not the entire thing.
Things don't work that way. Nothing can be given to anybody. Nothing can be given to anybody else.
So you're saying that an experience of that sort is not transferable?
No, it is not.
Not even temporarily?
Not in the sense that you're looking for it. And the fact that you keep asking the same question means that you are hopeful that it is.
My question is It'll take me about 30 seconds to ask, but I came on once, asked a mindless question as you previously described about 5 minutes ago. Got a typical abrupt answer which stung but was appropriate. Came back a week later, enjoyed the discussions and discourses up until then, asked another question equally mindless, but the question, your answer stuck with me, and I think that the whole purpose of this forum, it clicked. Since then, I understand that you don't have the answer. No book has the answer. There may not even be an answer, and I largely think social media doesn't have the answer. I'm done with it. I don't think of it that way. It's hard at times. Yet coming on here today, knowing that no one's going to give me any answer, including you, yet I still enjoy the discourse. I still enjoy the engagement and the conversation. Why is that? Even though I think I've learned the point.
Well, I can't answer that question for you as to why that is for you, but I will say that discussions about truth are completely absent in this world. I will say that. You won't find that anywhere.
Sorry, I just came in the last few seconds, and I was listening to you guys talking about that there's no questions being asked on. But I think even when we ask a question, is it really the question that we want to ask? Because
No,
sometimes,
that's actually a very good question. That's a very
yeah,
good question. Okay, and I will answer that for you. You don't have to talk anymore. You've already asked the question. You'll just ruin what you said if you go on. No, human beings don't really ask what they want to ask. Human beings ask questions according to what they've been taught to ask. And they ask questions according to what they've been taught to ask because they've been taught to live and view things in a certain way, which is through the lens of how-tos and prescriptions and dogmas and rituals and religious and spirituality and self-help and properness and correctness and incorrectness and goodness and badness and healthiness and unhealthiness. This is the entire way, and this is the entire lens through which the human being has become conditioned to live. Therefore, all of his questions naturally will arise from that fabric. And because that fabric is false, there is no healthy, there is no unhealthy, there is no good person, there is no bad person, there is no right, there is no wrong. Because all that entire fabric is false, then any question which arises from that fabric must necessarily and definitionally be false. Therefore, the only person who can truly ask a real question is a person who genuinely has some semblance of a reality within him, who has cultivated some degree of organic realness, some genuineness. Even if 95% of his body is plastic, perhaps 5% draws blood. And from that 5%, a genuine, true, sincere question may emerge.
You rightly said that the real question can't be asked because most of our questions are based on our perceptions and the conditioning which we have been going through. But then, what is the solution? How do we remove those layers of conditioning? Is there a way of removing those layers of conditioning so that
So
you
it is
start?
not about the way of removing the conditioning. It is about recognizing the conditioning. Because
Oh, yes.
the person lives his life believing that the things that he knows are real. The things that he's been told by society and by school and by his culture and his subculture and by his discipline and by his domain and by his teachers and his coaches and his gurus and his books and the media, it's all real. And because he thinks it's real, then he lives as a victim of this conditioning. And he cannot become unconditioned until he first begins to realize that all that he has become is 100% false.
Can you have innovation without intellect?
What if I say to you, yes or no? This is not a real question.
Yesterday you said there is no purpose of life. Since then it's spinning on my head. Should I teach my 8 years daughter like I'm convinced now there is no purpose of life?
I didn't understand you. I heard you say that you were convinced that there is no purpose of life.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just confused. Should I teach the same thing to my 8 years daughter that there is no purpose of life?
In order for one to hear something, there has to be a certain level of foundation. The people who come to this forum and they ask a question like a how-to, they're not ready to hear. Who are new to this, who are new to my work, and they come in, well, how do I find peace? They're not ready to hear that there is no how. Therefore, because they have no foundation. So if you tell someone that, if you tell someone something and they have no foundation for it, it will likely not be met with any kind of understanding.
You were telling someone earlier who asked the question that what is real is not necessarily good, and what is bad, what is not real is not necessarily bad, and that both are concepts that we make up in our minds. So, my question is, if emotion is an intrinsic part of being human, then how do you deal with the realization that all of these things are concepts that we make up in our minds that are not necessarily real or
Well, you
true?
already lost me. You already lost me because you bring your own platform, then you stand on the platform that you yourself brought. So you made a statement that if emotions are intrinsic to humans, and then you began asking questions based upon that concept.
So they're not?
It doesn't matter whether they are or not. The point is, you are convinced that they are. Therefore, you are not able to hear the truth. You're not ready for it because you're convinced of something. You're convinced in a concept already. So if I take away your platform, not only do the questions that follow that platform go away, but you have nowhere to stand now. You came standing on your own version of firm ground, which is that emotions are intrinsic to human beings. It doesn't matter whether they are or not. That isn't even what you were asking. You were convinced, you brought that with you. Then you ask questions based upon that assumption. Therefore, everything that you ask is irrelevant because it is based upon something that is an assumption. And whether that assumption is true or not is a completely different question. But you didn't come asking about the foundation. You came with your foundation in hand.
I respect that, thank you, but I do believe that some things that come naturally might actually be natural and might actually be real. So when I was talking about feelings, let me change the question a little bit. If I get the feeling after understanding that what you said is so very true, that yes, we do make up those concepts in our minds, but as I understood that when you said it, if I get the feeling of being lost, that there is nothing that's really tangible, how do you deal with something like that? So
There
that
is
might be
nothing to
my
deal with
next.
anything. There's nothing to deal with. What does dealing with mean?
Living with it, tolerating it, not being
And so
upset
that,
about it.
right. So what is tolerating going to do for you?
I suppose that it will make it easier to
Okay,
understand
fine.
something like that. Yeah, sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
no, I don't think tolerating will make it easier to understand. Tolerating simply makes it easier to live with something that you don't really want.
I believe that, but of course, you might have a different opinion, but I understand that accepting something and not being resistant to it is the first step to really understanding it. If you're constantly resisting an emotion or even an emotion that arises towards an idea, then you're not really giving that idea
Your problem is
the
that you have too many
space.
beliefs. You have too many beliefs. You're not ready for the truth. And you seem like a very intelligent person, but you're smitten and poisoned by belief systems. You come with a basket full of beliefs. As a result, your cup is not empty. You can't receive any truth.
Thank you so much. I'm done asking questions, but I'm just going to say this one last thing that I kept actually hearing that sentence in my mind all day that my cup is too full. So I thank you for the opportunity and I appreciate everything you said. Thank you. I'll give the
Sure.
stage to someone else.
Hi, you mentioned earlier that I mean, you kind of alluded to it, that the social fabric has conditioned us and that we need to kind of accept that our perception is false, or how we've been conditioned is
Be
false.
very
And
careful with your words.
I know. I don't
Okay.
want to say that you said, that's why I said alluded, but my
No, I didn't even
what
allude to the
confuses
fact. I didn't even allude to the fact that one should accept anything.
Okay. I know it's not a prescription. I won't treat it as it was a prescription. I will just go to my question. I think you got the idea. But what confuses me is that, do we have to consider it false, or do we have to consider it as limited, and that there's scope to expand it? And that
You don't
confuses
have to
me.
do anything. That's why you're confused, because you believe that there's something that you have to do.
I'm thinking that what you're saying is just open your eyes and look at things. Is that
No, I did not say anything like that. I did not. If you encapsulate what I say, you're going to misunderstand. I did not tell you to open your eyes and look at things. I didn't tell you to do anything. Whatever, if you gained something from it, you did. If you didn't, you didn't. I didn't try to make you gain something from it. I don't care if you do or not. But there is no, I'm not trying to help anyone.
right?
I'm simply stating the way things are. What you choose to do with it or don't do it or conceptualize it in your own way is up to you. But there's nothing that I even remotely imply that one should do or not do or accept or look or this or that and do nothing. I don't think that you can fathom, or anyone can really fathom, the degree to which I don't hope or expect or need or suggest anything.
I just wanted to understand, like, while we do away with some sense of beliefs or prescriptions of whatever, like, we want to define it as, why does at times it feels peaceful, uh, but still there is a sense of delusion that whether those prescriptions were actually right, or whether I am just transferring from one set of prescriptions to another. Like, I just I just am trying to understand, like, what happens truly when we are, like, truly unbounded by all set of prescriptions or beliefs or dogmas in whatever sense.
Well, there's no, I don't want to answer that question. Because if I tell you that if you don't follow prescriptions, X will happen, it'll be some kind of attempt to make you not follow prescriptions. And I have no interest in doing that. I have no interest in selling the idea. If you wish to
Yeah,
look into
because
prescriptions,
to some extent, that would in itself become a prescription. That's why you.
100%. And so if you wish to look into the fallacy of prescriptions, you may. But you must understand, and everybody in this room must understand this. You come from the world. You come from the world into my domain, and you bring the trappings and the conditionings and the flavor and the vestiges of the world here. That currency doesn't work here. So you come over here, and in that world out there, you are bombarded by people telling you what to do in subtle and in outright obvious ways. You bring that over here, and you ask me what you should do. And because everyone in the world is trying to convince you of something. I couldn't care less about you. I don't care what you know or don't know, where you get in your life, whether you become enlightened or realized or not. I have no
I
interest in
guess.
helping anyone. No, don't respond. You're not listening. You're not listening. There shouldn't be any response that you give to this. If you respond, you didn't hear anything. So
Kapil,
when
I
you
just had a follow-up question on this.
don't ask a follow-up question. Don't ask a follow-up question. Why do you ask a follow-up question if you haven't got the answer to the first one yet? It is just more prescription chasing. So I am not interested in selling you on the idea of getting away from prescriptions. It's great if you follow prescriptions for the rest of your life. I have no relationship with any of you. I am simply stating the way things are because I enjoy doing that.
My question for you is, I don't really understand your ideology and some of the logical fallacies that I find behind it. How would you recommend, if somebody doesn't care or listens to you on what you deem to be the truth, to simply keep their lights on, to be able to have 3 meals a day and to provide for themselves? I mean, I find that when you say that you're simply delivering the truth as the way it is and it's not a prescription for anybody, well, that's a great fallacy for you to be able to always lie on that. But in
Well,
a way, would you profit off
I
this?
honestly, I think that your greatest problem is that you're here at all. I'm not a person who's for you. I don't have anything to convince you of. The fact that you're even wasting your time listening to me, you should leave before my words are finished. This is not for you.
I understand that there is truth, and there are many truths depending on what you seek. The question I ask myself, which I now ask you, is how does one know that one's genuine understanding of certain truths is not infiltrated with any potential level of untruth and therefore deceit, such that one may feel absolutely sure that they are living a pure life of authentic truth
Well,
without deluding
I think that
themselves?
you've conceptualized and turned truth into a concept to live up to. Purity doesn't mean anything. Truth doesn't mean anything. It isn't good. And you've put it on a pedestal. But that's not real. That's just living up to more goodness and self-help. Because then you can say, I live up to truth. Nothing means anything. No one should follow truth, ever. If someone does, naturally, genuinely, it's because they can't help it. It's not a good thing.
I was wondering, the truth that you're talking about, there's only one truth. So most of the time what I hear is reality, and truth is something that we cannot speak about. So maybe you can shed light on this thing.
Everything has a truth.
Yes, it does. It does have truth. Uh, but truth is something that we cannot perceive when we are so much conditioned by everything. So
I have a 4 years old son. I want him to be the world's best person in his craft, whatever craft he chooses. I know there are prescriptions all around which will all fail. So can you tell me the truth which will allow me to achieve this goal of mine?
You may wish to read my work. It might provide you some direction, or it might not. It's too big of a topic for me to sit here in this forum to explain that. There's a bunch of there's direct truth podcasts. There's things on the website, all sorts of things that have been published that I've written about that.
I was just curious why you waste your time on us. Like, why? Like, I don't know. I've read a lot of your work, and all these questions are like, I know I'm not at a point or I can embody the stuff that you've written. And I genuinely know I have no questions. And all these questions feel like so far, far beyond like the realm of your work. It's like a totally different world almost. So I just wonder, like, why do you? Is this a waste of your time? Like, why are you so generous with your time?
Well, I mean, it's an excellent question. Why I do it, I don't really know, and it's possible that someday I will just stop, or I may not stop. I have no idea. It's a good question, though. Perhaps one that I should ask someone too, because I have no idea what the answer is.
Hi.
Do you have a question?
Um, yes. Like my question is, why don't I have any questions? I mean, they just fly away. Like as soon as they come, they just fly away like water vapors.
So, what will it help you to know? Why will it help you to know why that is? Besides
Why
intellectual
would you help
curiosity.
me? I. Why you're saying why would you help me? Right?
No, no. Why would it help you to know? Why your questions go away? How is
Why
that
would it help?
how is that anything other than intellectual curiosity?
I've heard a few people over these clubhouses ask you why do you do this, and I know you say you don't know and you know you best, but boy, I gotta say, my understanding of why you do this is because this is you practicing your craft. I mean, you're an incredible orator, you're a wonderful writer. This is you channeling everything you know, your understanding of the truth, and this is your performance. This is your sit-up performance, as far as I'm concerned. And this leads into my question, which is, I came into your work as someone who is an ex-athlete, now a trader, also in business. And I came to sit a performance to better understand myself, to perform better in those areas. And I think the only real example I have of someone like living their craft to the fullest, living their truth and exemplifying it in performance is you, but you are an orator and you are a writer. And so my question is, what is sit a performance, to quote the name of your banner, for a business person or for a trader or for...
Number one, I have no interest in performing. Because if I'm to perform something, that means that there's a contract with the audience, and more fundamentally, there's a contract with hope that my performance will be a good performance. I don't think that you can fathom the degree to which I have such little regard for how I am perceived by any audience. So there's no performance. It's an anti-performance. If a person wants to become supreme in their craft and they're beholden to an audience, they're slaves.
You have said a lot earlier that there are few, if any, people in your domain who seek truth or explore truth. And since we are what we are most exposed to, so if I have to, seek truth, then is it entirely about what truth I can derive from repeated experimentation and people I'm around with, rather than the people around me themselves? Is it just entirely about
Well,
me?
you will never derive truth from anybody around you.
But
Never.
you said that you are what you're repeatedly exposed to. So what context did you say that in?
Well, you're repeatedly exposed to lies, because what you're repeatedly exposed to is society, and to your friends, and to the world, and your social circle, and to the books that you read, and the experts that you listen to, and the media that you watch.
And
That is
truth
who you
means getting
are.
rid of this. And truth
I'm
means
sorry?
getting rid of this. And truth means getting rid of this exposure entirely.
No, I'm not telling you that. I'm not asking you to get rid of anything. If you see that something is a lie, are you going to need to be told to get rid of it?
Yet,
Do you need to be told to throw your trash out?
no.
Okay. So the reason that you throw your trash out is why? Because you don't value the trash. That's why you want it out.
Is there anything that I say or is there anything that I do that is not from the mind? Like, is there anything that even anyone in
No.
this room has said that is not from? Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Woefully no.
Does truth seeking only happen in solitude?
No. It can happen anywhere. Depends upon the individual.
You talk much about looking at our problems directly and getting to the root cause of a problem. When you practiced medicine, did you also apply this concept to your work? And also, did you find that other doctors also did this or did not do it?
Firstly, it isn't a concept. The root of the problem is where the problem can be cured. And human beings are not taught to do that. Human beings are not conditioned that way. They're conditioned to seek prescriptions and treatments, not cures.
My question is, to what I have understood, there is no single point of truth, and truth is subjective to the person and to what he or she experiences around his surroundings and the environment. Is it what I am getting from your telling in this community?
No, truth is not subjective. Truth, everything has a truth. And the subjectivity is opinion and belief. And truth is the enemy of opinion and belief.
My question is related to the topic that came just before this. So, truth does have two sides to it, right? Two sides of the story. So, uh, how do you decide which one to pick?
I don't even know where to begin. It is such a misguided question. I don't even know where to begin, so I won't.
The place from where we ask a question, that is intellect. Is it capable to know the truth?
No, it is not.
Then why? Then why questions?
Because you've been conditioned to use only your intellect.
Got it. Thank you.
Good question.
Namaste, Kapilji.
Namaste.
I wanted to know that when I started getting aware of myself and aware of my conditioning, and I got closer to myself, and slowly I started to shed my conditioning, and I know there is a long way to go for that. But sometimes when I'm in presence, I feel intense emotions, and sometimes I tremble, I cry, and I know this is I feel like maybe this is a process releasing my emotions and energies process. What do you think it is? I'm just curious about it.
It doesn't matter what it is. If you turn it into something, you'll intellectualize it. Understand
So,
this.
yeah,
You're not getting better.
yeah. So we just feel into it in the present and just let it happen.
I didn't say anything about letting anything happen. Do you see how quickly you responded after I spoke?
Yes.
You didn't hear my response. Unless a human being hears the response that they're looking for, they just react with another question. I don't waste words.
Yeah.
So if I say something, it doesn't mean that you should listen. But if I bother to say it, there is something there. But if you wish to, you may look into it. But nothing that I say is to invite more questions.
Namaste, Kapil. My question
Namaste.
is truth beyond reasoning?
Yes.
Just a question follow-up. These methods the Buddha or the Hindus teach, they say there is a path to
It's
which
nonsense.
just
It is utter nonsense. And
let me complete
do
my
not,
question, please.
no, I don't need to let you complete. Hang on. It is utter nonsense,
Okay.
but
Mhm.
do not listen to anything that I just said. That must be
Okay.
experienced for yourself.
Yeah, that's what beyond reasoning means. You are saying.
How does one recondition themselves to seek truth?
Well, you don't recondition yourself to seek truth. If one wishes, they could understand that all that they know are lies.
Thank you.
My question is about hope. Is hope essentially a form of optimism that's just like not truth? And is that why I'm finding hope to be a dead end?
Hope is a complete dead end. Hope
And
is very
is it
destructive. It's destructive.
right? Is there any other insights? I find myself sort of coming to an
Well,
intellectualized understanding of that, and then drifting away from
right
it.
there might take you 30 years. So you don't need anything else right now.
I've been a little curious for some days that I just wanted to know that is believing in afterlife or maybe a second birth or any theology is
Have you figured
a
out this life?
I mean, I'm just trying. I mean, I've not figured out this life. I believe most of
So
us
then
spend.
why do you worry about the afterlife?
No, I'm not worried about afterlife. I'm just wanting to
Why are you
know.
even thinking about the afterlife?
I've
Have
had
you
a
solved
near.
have you solved all of your problems in this life?
I'm not even.
Aren't you thinking day and night about this life?
I would like to know if unconditional love is real.
I mean, it's a fair question, but only if one is able to cleanse himself of all attachment.
What is the highest good?
Why do you believe in good?
Why do you want to know?
You came up here. You ask a question that's baseless, so therefore it responded with a question. If you don't want to respond to it, it's not a big deal.
As I read your work, I come to the conclusion that many things that I do seems to be going towards a form of freedom. It's the understanding that many things that we do is a form of freedom, a truth.
Well, nothing that you do is a form of freedom. All that you do is a form of imprisonment.
My question is, how do you unlearn learning?
It's a conceptual question. Ask what you really wish to ask.
I guess if I were to elaborate further, how do you learn while learning to unlearn at the same time? Because as you learn, you tend to form beliefs, and those beliefs may or may not be right. And so how do you do both at the same time?
I think a person has to be willing to sever themselves from all of their beliefs, but that can only happen if they seek truth.
Right, but as you mentioned, there are many truths and yet no truths at the same time. So how does one go through that process?
No, there are not no truths. There are not no truths. There are not many truths and then no truths at the same time. There are many truths.
My question is arrival at the truth is, or is it just a constant discovery process that never really ends until we take our last breath? Or is it just my mind again getting sucked into this journeys and not
Yes,
arriving at
that's
the
exactly
destination?
right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's very wise of you to understand that you asked the question and you found your own answer. You're exactly correct. That's just more
Thank
the,
you.
the conditioning of the journey and not the destinations and stuff.
My
Hello?
question is regarding discovering the path which drives me to do. In the path, when I was exposed to your discourse or solo podcast, I listened to it hundreds of times. So it drives me to go into that and listen to it. But the same thing, but to come to this location, it took a lot of my years. I don't know why I could not get your podcast before itself. But my question is, does it take a lot of time even to discover the craft which drives me to do? And is it trying everything and failing in it and finding the one which drives me is the way?
Some people end up with a craft, other people don't. Some people never find what it is that they truly have a talent in. So I don't know if you will ever find that or not, but it seems that you have within you a certain level of affinity um, for things that have spoken to you. And whether you call that a craft or not, whatever the things are that most speak to you, those are the things where your heart is. Therefore, those are the things that are most real.
Once one becomes truth realized, would it be wise to go out and gain knowledge, or is that detrimental?
Have you realized the truth?
I'm not saying me, but just in general.
Who cares?
I'm looking for guidance. if that's helpful or possible.
But you're asking about what should you do once you reach somewhere in the future? If you haven't even reached there, why are you asking what to do next?
I think it's more of planning for the future, which, yes, I am putting the cart before the horse, but I'm trying to plan out my life, and this question is something that comes up a lot, and
this is not, you're not driving to the grocery store here. Things don't work in that way when it comes to these types of otherworldly things. This is not a planning to get a job. Once I become realized the truth, there's not a single probably human being in your generation that will realize the truth. So what are you going to plan?
My question is like, is there something like, is too much of self-awareness a bad thing, and can it result in a state of action paralysis?
So what if I told you it is a bad thing? Then what are you going to do?
No, I will have to find a way to live with it and figure out how to leverage that. But there have been times when I have been plagued by doubts about like if you want to function in the constructs of society, is it something too much of some self-awareness can hamper you. So
Yeah, you're conditioned by the idea of good and bad, as everybody is. It doesn't matter what's bad and what's good.
For me, the ultimate question is what is truth? And I don't know if truth with a capital T exists, but if it does, it can only be defined as this moment, and this moment is different for every life. So when you speak about truth with a capital T, are you speaking on behalf of universal truth or the individual truth within oneself, or are they the same thing? Thank you.
In order to discover the truth, one has to be ready for it. And you are unfortunately filled with too many concepts right now.
Thanks in large part to your work and a lot of time spent in solitude, I had a very brief and short period of time of a few weeks or so where I felt as though I had achieved a state of no self, where there was no turmoil, there was no inner conflict, and if it did arise, it vanished as soon as it came. And I felt as though I had a lot of clarity on everything, and I was able to see the truth very clearly. But as you might imagine, the reason I'm up here is because it did fade. And although I understand the futility of trying to chase it, my question is, what causes it to come and go like this? And is this something that's normal?
Who cares? What caused it to come and go? Who cares? Is it normal? Who cares? Of what relevance is that? What if I told you it caused it to come and go because the atmospheric pressure changes in the air? That's why it comes and goes. And number two, is it normal? Yes, it's normal. Therefore, in the next second, how has your life changed?
Presumably, my question was what causes it, so I could try to get to the root cause. That was the thinking behind the question.
Yeah, intellectuality is in your bloodstream.
I'm afraid you're correct.
And you don't see the detriment in that. That's why you're okay with saying you're correct and yet go on with your life. You don't recognize the poison that you're holding, and you don't recognize the time of life that you're wasting. You can say that I'm correct all day long. The point is, you continue holding the bomb. Therefore, you're saying that I'm correct, just intellectual. You're not desperate.
I feel I'm sincere. I feel I have been obsessive of my life. I achieved things that I wanted to achieve materially. I've been exposed to your work for over a decade. Um, I have this fear. So I am truly committed to freedom. That's my main thing. Not caring about things and just be free of my mind. So that's something I live for now. The fear of not getting there, I don't know if that fear is fear because I am not sincere enough, because I have doubt, I doubt myself, or is that fear normal? I don't want to live a
Well, it
life
doesn't
in
matter.
misery.
It doesn't matter if it's normal or not, and it doesn't matter why the fear is there. The point is that when you have fear, it is because you're putting something on a pedestal and you're afraid that you won't live up to it. And even if you do live up to it, it doesn't matter that because you don't get a medal anyways. So at the end of the day, truth lies in a devotion to truth. So your whole life, if it is devoted to the truth, then there won't be any fear of trying to live up to it or not, because you're trying to find the truth, not trying to get somewhere in your mind.
I was having just two questions in my mind, which I'm struggling with a lot. The first one is like, I have so much a plan of my career, of where I want to go and what I want to do. But the problem is me, I'm lacking in executing that ideas. What can you suggest? What I'm like messing up with, or I'm thinking a lot? What the proper way of executing this thing?
Why are you interested in executing anything?
Because that's a part of my career, and I want to execute for fulfilling my desire, you can say, or in career, anything.
Well, if it really meant that much to you, then you would have executed it already.
Read all these things and understand all these things, and I'm just all over the place and conflicted between different desires you have. Or and yeah, obviously, if some desire it would have been like
So
stronger
what's
than
your
other.
question? What's your question?
I'm same man I was 2 or 3 years ago. Specifics have changed, places have changed, people have changed, but I'm the same man. There's no transformation. Nothing happened has happened, and I'm feeling suffocated and stuck. And it's not doing anything. I'm still the same person, and I'm always stuck in my own head, and I have no
Number
contact
one,
with
there's no such
reality.
thing as improvement. Number two, that's because you're conditioned to follow prescriptions. They don't work.
There is an area, called a narrow sliver in which I think I am pursuing truth. And I recently realized one thing where there was a disconnect, where I felt both intellectually and viscerally that I was pursuing the truth, but I noticed something that didn't add up, where as you say, sort of truth goes beyond reason. I realized that there was a part of me viscerally that did not align with the truth, essentially that it was false. And in parallel, one thing I've been doing is trying to talk to people about this truth, and with the desire that they would understand certain things. But in particular, listening to you, I realized that there's no point in doing that. And I have engaged with people in more of a detached way. And so the question is, does a desire to essentially tell people about the truth reflect something within me where I'm still at the stage where I'm only reasoning about it, but haven't fully internalized it? Thank you.
You think talking to people has value. That's your problem.
So my question was, how we've read that growing up, like we're conditioned to believe that nights are cooler and days are warmer. I was just wondering if like, as human beings, do we feel this first or do we read this first?
Who cares? How's that going to affect your life?
It's just something that I was trying to like wander over with my thoughts on education and like how it's working in the current world.
What human beings call education is not education.
So I was thinking about something I heard where about the cult of society, and I was a little reluctant to discount all of society in general, in the sense that if say two people that each have the truth-seeking DNA get together, have a dialogue, and in doing so, unintentionally shed some light on the blocks that the other person just can't see yet. So
Yeah,
is that a possibility, or does it
you're
have to
just
be
way off.
solitary?
You're just way off base, and you're not ready to hear something opposite of that. You're just way off base. You're too interested in two people knowing the truth in discussions and socialization. It just isn't true. It's just not worthy of conversation.
I have a question is that why we all think that all the gurus have the answer to all the questions. Why can't we go inside and find that question? Why we are so unable to ask this question to ourselves
There is
and
no we.
always
There is no
uh,
we.
I I. So if I say about myself, why I always believe that my answer lies to you and you can only give me the best answer and I cannot go somewhere else.
You can do what you want, but I will tell you that you're conditioned by society in an almost irreversible way. Human
Yeah,
beings don't know. No. Why do you ask more questions when the first question isn't even finished? I don't
sorry,
understand.
sorry.
Are you trying to do a Guinness Book of World Records of how many questions you can get in? No one hears anything. They just want to ask questions. They don't want to hear anything.
You seem very calm, and especially how you handle the other people, how you handle questions. How do you reach to that stage of self-assurance and confidence? Thank you.
I don't try to be a certain way. Whatever shows up, shows up. There is an intense devotion to truth. There isn't any attempt to perform, and that isn't a good thing that I'm not trying to perform. Don't copy that. That isn't a good thing. However it comes across, it comes across. I didn't try to be self-assured. I didn't try to be confident.
My question was, do you believe one should fear death?
I don't believe anything.
My question is, when does the fear end?
Next Thursday at 5 p.m.
How do we know that the reality that we're living in right now is the real one?
You're not. You're living in your head. Your entire life is a lie.
If someone was... No, let me rephrase this, sorry. If one was left to his own devices, completely and utterly by himself, would the mind still create a self?
Doesn't matter. It's theoretical. It's not your reality. So what's the difference?
My question was, is it possible for us to live without intellectualizing?
What if I told you it wasn't possible? Would you give up?
If it wasn't possible,
Uh-huh.
I might give up.
Right. So at the end of the day, the person who gets the truth is the person who deserves it. And the person who deserves it is the person who doesn't have any interest in whether something is possible or not. They are so beholden to it. They are so devoted to it. They don't really care about anything else.
Thank you.
Why is it rare for one to know the truth?
Why is it rare?
It's not common, it's not popular. Society is
Because
built on
rare
lies.
humans are rare. Society is full of minions and cardboard cutouts. There's no real person out there.
Why is that popular? Why is it more popular to be a minion than it is to be the rare?
Because society manufactures minions in their factory. Everyone's has become a social animal. The sting of society is something that no one gets over.
How
Maybe
about
one
yourself?
rare one in perhaps in a generation. But it just doesn't happen.
Can we get halfway there?
That type of assault isn't something that people get over. Now, if that's possible for you, it might be. I don't know.
So you said this life is a lie. Then why are you answering their questions?
Are you really satisfied with your question?
No, I
Can
just
you really,
wanted to ask.
can you really look in your question and take some level of genuineness from it? Do you enjoy wasting your time and mine?
No, I don't enjoy. That's why I asked the question.
Kapil, my question is around the consistency. As in, I have experienced truth for some times, but it's just momentarily and it goes away. In deep meditations, through some organizations, through some practices, I experience those glimpses, but I'm not able to sustain it. Like, how do I sustain
You
it at
never
some?
will. A person like you can never attain truth
And why so?
because you are committed to prescriptions, organizations,
So,
meditations, methods, techniques. And don't ask me what else you should do. It doesn't matter. You are
Mhm.
beholden to those things. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. But because you are beholden to those things, you don't have a prayer. You will never find truth.
So, Kapil, is there no
And if you understand what he was going to ask, is there no organization that would provide me that? That isn't a real question. He is simply convinced that there is. He simply wants me to say, yes, very well. I'll break down and tell you that X method will work. Go ahead, since you must have one.
My question is, who or what decides which thought is to come up when? And why is that certain thoughts have a strong emotional charge to them? And this charge it cannot be released, or at least that's what I feel, unless I leave all the tricks of talking to friends and discussing this or comparing the situation with something worse, and I'm forced to at one point sit with it. And while sitting with it and not trying to change it, somewhere the charge leaves, but it just keeps happening again and again, and more incidents keep coming up. Is there an end to it?
Um, if there is an end to it, it depends upon the DNA of the human being. For a human being who is life devoted to truth, an end is possible. For a human being that is not, it is not.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
Okay?
So there was a monk who suddenly, I've known him for 7 years. When I first started asking questions, for some reason, I was, there was this feeling to meet him. I studied with some of his cousins. I knew he was a no nonsense guy, but very kind. But over the years, he just spoke logic. He never taught me anything or anything. When during the lockdown, a lot of things started happening that probably physics that I've learned in school and college would not be able to explain. And at one point, he gave me certain things to probably, or I think him being there kind of made things easy at one point. And I think when these things were coming up, a lot of it, I have a feeling, just I was able to get rid of because he was there around, and I wasn't even meeting him every day, or I didn't even meet him during that period. I would just talk to him over the phone, and suddenly he didn't tell me, he just disappeared, and I was just left by myself. And when I talk about weird experiences, I'm talking about experiences. If I
So
told somebody,
what's your
they
question?
would call me crazy. Why did you just like leave me? Then did it mean that does it mean that maybe I should drop this pursuit, or I'm in a place where I can't go back? There is no going back.
Well, if you're devoted to truth, then you will tend to find your way.
Okay.
What came first, action or contemplation?
What does it matter?
Because it might possibly be the answer to consciousness.
What does consciousness mean?
The ladder to truth. I don't know.
You don't know is the only worthwhile thing that you've said. Everything else is just babbling idiocy from the spiritual world.
What drives someone to seek the truth, as you say, And is it driven by fear, which makes someone to seek truth, or is it something else?
It can be driven by anything. I don't really know what drives a given human being. Everyone might have their own particular drive for it. The only thing that really matters is whether it's there or not.
So my question is that, after exposing myself to your work over the last couple of years, I've gotten sort of, I've been able to disregard certain thoughts and urges of the mind, specifically, when it comes to, let's say, overeating or, reaching out to my phone to look at social media. And it's happened in a very organic way. It's not been forced. Like, I've just recognized that, okay, these are the patterns of my mind, and disregarding them has actually brought me, like, quote unquote positive results, in the sense that I'm eating, healthy, not emotional eating, or I'm not spending any time on social media. So, disregarding those urges and thoughts has become sort of easy. And I'm trying to, use the same sort of thing with disregarding, fearful or anxious thoughts when I have them. But I haven't been as successful in terms of loosening the hold of certain anxious thoughts over me. So I was wondering if...
No, you will not be able to. You're asking for a prescription, how to get away from anxiety. You should know better than that by now.
So I just wanted to ask you a question about desire. Previously, in many other talks, you talk about how having sincere desire is key to reaching the truth. And my own personal experience, what I've experienced is that a lot of times when I really, really want something, I sometimes fool myself into thinking that I've gotten it. So how do I know whether I'm fooling myself versus not fooling myself if I found the truth?
I'm just not interested in the question. It doesn't matter whether you know one thing or another. It's just more intellectualization.
These questions, these questionings, they do not matter. I mean, sorry, let me rethink what I'm trying to say. There's no particular path to truth, is it? Like, for me, if I say this works for me, for another person it might not. Everyone has their own version of truth, or like is there even a truth? Like, because a truth can, like, I think a truth can become, I don't know, like, is there even a truth? Because it
Yes,
can
there
change
is.
the nature.
No, truth does not change. Belief and opinions change.
Okay. Sorry, can you please repeat?
Belief and opinions change. Truth does not change.
Belief.
What is value?
I just don't know what to say.
Can I put it into context?
Just open dictionary. Why do you ask these questions?
Like in every judgment or in every action I do, I seek to make it valuable and not wrong. And I always get into this loop of not making it wrong. And
you will continue to do so because you believe in right and wrong.
Why are we curious?
Who cares?
I care because I'm curious and I want to understand the nature of where that curiosity comes from.
So even if you understand where it comes from, what's that going to do for you? That's
Give
just
me,
more curiosity. No, it's not. It's not going to give you anything.
It won't give me more perspective.
You're just being curious about why you're curious.
So it's just a never-ending loop, essentially.
Your whole life is a never-ending loop because intellectuality is a never-ending loop.
A while ago, I came up and I asked a question about love and attachment, and you gave me something that you answered that with a statement that said basically if you start with absolute attachment and you work your way backwards, the point at where that focus that you have is purely and authentically on the freedom of the other is where love begins. And this struck me as profoundly true, and I sat with it for a long time. And one of the questions that came out of it for me was, am I, like, if I applied that same scale, like, to myself, where I start with 100% attachment to everything I think and consider, and then work my way backwards to the point where I have freedom, what is that? What am I attached to?
So
Am I
here's
even?
the issue.
Yeah.
Here's the issue with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sincerity in you.
Yeah.
But you hold the truth at arm's length. You hold your desire for the truth at arm's length because you are very smitten by intellectualness. You believe in science and you believe in modern speakers and intellectuals and books. And because you believe in all those things, they poison and interfere the sincerity within you that could otherwise move towards truth. You are not all in, but you have the potential to be so. And actually, the greatest tragedy is not for one who never had the potential to be so, but it is actually for the one who did have the potential, but the world got in their way because they allowed the world to get in their way.
Yeah, it's true.
If you don't go all in, one day you will meet with a very, very difficult time in your life.
At this time, at this moment, why are you with us right now?
I don't know.
Hello, Siddharth. I've never been to your room before, so I've only just come across it now. I'm not sure what my posing question would be, but I suppose what I'm really asking for is life direction. Can I just pose that question to you? Would that be sufficient, or would you like background?
You can ask the question. But since you're new here, you likely will not understand the response.
Okay, I'm always open. But, my question basically is that I feel I need to move in a certain direction, but I suppose I can't seem to find the courage, or I'm actually just looking at the obstacles rather than the opportunities. How do I do that?
Number one, there is no such thing as courage. Number two, there is no how. Number three, you're not ready for those teachings yet.
My question is, when you are doing a deep dive into a how of something in order to understand, uh, why do the biases keep creeping into the mind to uh, sway us into one direction, and we are not able to, think into the first principles?
You already look at the first principles. You've just marked yourself as an intellectual. There is no first principle nonsense. You don't have any possibility of learning the truth because you are absolutely saturated by intellectual idiocy. There is no first principles. Unless you burn your books, which you will never do, you have no prayer of saying the truth.
Hello, Kapil. Hello.
Hello? Yes.
Can you can hear? Hello.
Yes.
It's an honor to finally speak with you. In your work, you've described the causes that lead to basically everything that I ever wanted, um, like success and peace, and causes. Those causes are things that I can personally control, like seriousness. Apparently, I can't make myself become serious. What do I need to understand so that I stop being unserious? Thank you.
If and when it happens, it will happen. Attempts will sabotage you.
I was just wondering, what is a question that is worth asking according to you that you were wishing that we would ask here?
I don't wish anything like that. I don't have a question in mind.
I mean, like a valid question that would, I feel that all the previous questions were kind of not what you were expecting people to ask.
I wasn't expecting anyone to ask any real questions. Humans are conditioned creatures. You may want to read and contemplate about the title of this room.
What does being of service mean?
It means that you are smitten by the false ideas of spirituality, and that will be the greatest barrier between you and truth. And you will not understand this at this time.
What, according to you, is the ultimate truth?
There are many ultimate truths, but really the only effective thing is a given human being devoted to it or not? And it must be made imperatively clear that he or she should not be devoted to it. There is no compulsion.
How would one deal with this inner struggle if one seeks a lot of silence and solitude, but is not getting that because of work and other commitments?
One does not need silence and solitude. There only needs to be a devotion to the truth if that is in one's DNA.
My question is relating to questions that are inward versus outwards. Do you think that any questions that is outward comes as a hindrance to understanding that?
For you, the inward and the outward are the same. What has been outside you has just seeped inward. So what's inside you is just a conditioning of society that's outside of you. It's all the same.
As a human being, is there anything in our hands, or every action just comes from our mind? Or
The practical reality is that everything that you do in your life is from your mind. But that which a human being is genuinely devoted to, that can be not that can be more significant than the mind.
So just let me say this for like 1 second, like 1 minute. I really don't know where to begin with this. I just wanted to genuinely, sincerely thank you for everything you've done. Just on whatever it is that you do, and all the work that you've published, all the clubhouses. I don't know what caused you to be on my way, but having found your work at such a young age, I think has just sparked something within me that has always been there, but I never knew how to access it. But having been exposed to your work, and realizing some deep truths about life has tremendously affected me in a way that I can't thank you enough. I just wanted to say thank you, genuinely. Like no matter what word I use, it's just incredible. I can't really believe that there is, like, I found you on this internet through whatever it was that I really don't know the first time I was exposed to your work, but ever since then, having read and bought all your books and having doing all of that is just, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is said that duality does not exist when true knowledge arises, when someone attains the ultimate truth. So, wouldn't that imply that when that happens, the person itself ceases to
So who
exist?
cares? Who cares when that happens, if that's even true? You're talking about something that's light years away from you. You just intellectual curiosity. It's just chit chat.
My question to you is, how do I go through the workings of the day, everyday work, and uh, not feel good or bad about it? Just go
It's
through.
not going to happen. There's no bad or good. There is no how. You're not ready to ask questions yet.
My question is actually, is the life is predefined or it happens based on the actions what we do? Do you have an answer for this?
You may want to look at your everyday life and focus upon what you're actually devoted to. That will take you to a much more effective place.
Our cognitive abilities are reliable, do you think? I mean, we don't know how our mind works or our brain works, so can we really know what the truth is?
Not through that vehicle.
I know that I'm a slave of my mind and there is no way out of it. Is there any hope?
If one is devoted to the truth, then there's a possibility, yeah.
How can I continue to search for the truth if I am surrounded by a society immersed in the material world?
It doesn't matter what society does. It's about what's the level of one's internal devotion.
Kapil, I wanted to understand this DNA thing a little bit. Like you keep mentioning, it needs to
DNA is
be
not
a.
genetic DNA. DNA is how one is wired, one's sensibilities.
So is it predetermined?
Yes.
I've been trying to ask myself what I really want. In the past, I've asked this question, and if I get some answers and pursued them, it just turned out that I wanted something more after I attained them, and it just feels like I'm chasing something one after the other. Is that because I'm not asking this question with the right level of sincerity, or is that so?
Yes,
How do I go about this?
you're asking it mechanically, not sincerely.
Is truth some kind of pleasure chase?
If it was, do you think that I'd be devoted to it?
I think it has become a chase after exposing to your work. Before that, it was only pleasure chasing. It feels
Yes.
liberating if we'll know it.
Yes. Some people do turn it into a pleasure chase, and if you have, it won't get you anywhere. But yes,
Okay.
some people. Good night.